From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Good Tuesday morning. Welcome to Montana This Morning. It's 5 o'clock. I'm Victoria Hill. Thank you for starting your day with us. We begin with breaking news. A 29-year-old man is shot and killed by Billings police after getting into a fight with officers late last night. Here's what we know so far. Police say they were called to the 2200 block of Avenue C on the West End around 10:20 last night, where they made contact with 3 suspects. When 2 officers tried to detain a 29-year-old Box Elder man, they got into a physical fight and both police officers fired their weapons. The suspect was taken to the hospital where he died from gunshot wounds. An investigation is underway. Billings Police Chief Rich St. John will hold a press conference later today to release more information. In other news, Yellowstone County's health officer announces new coronavirus restrictions, but they aren't as harsh as he previously said they would be. First, just some good news for business owners. Capacity at bars and restaurants will remain at 75%. Starting tomorrow, though, they will be required to close at 12:30 a.m. Personal gatherings cannot include more than 25 people, and churches will be limited to 50% capacity. These changes will remain in effect for at least 4 weeks. Health Officer John Felton says he could still institute stricter measures if case numbers are still climbing by then. Yellowstone County has the most active cases in Montana with nearly 1,500. Local businesses have been under varying degrees of restrictions for more than 5 months now, yet the county's attorney office has not filed a single criminal complaint for those rules being broken. As Q2's Casey Conlon shows us, officials are choosing to deal with through conversation and not prosecution.
In the 5 months since Billings businesses have been allowed to reopen, the attorney's office has not filed a single criminal complaint for a COVID-19 order violation. But that's not to say they haven't been close.
There are entities that have been in various stages of it. However, usually along the lines of, okay, here's your criminal charge, here's when you come to court, here's when you get fined or have jail time. Along the lines, people recognize that this is a real issue.
Lervik says those instances have been outliers. Many of the more recent complaints have been about masking issues indoors, which are very difficult to deal with for 2 reasons. One,
by the time the complaint is filed, that person's typically gone.
And even if the office did locate an offender,
if they turn into, down the road, a much more legal proceeding, it's a very, very strict standard, and it's a criminal act, and so we want to make 100% certain that we know what's going on and what isn't.
It's a bigger problem for business owners who are being forced to play both sides while assuming all the risk.
Really, the way those orders are drawn, they are directed at empowering businesses to control what's going on within their establishment. And so if there was a violation of that order, it would be directed at the business.
It's scary. I wish that everybody would wear the mask and wash their hands and stay home when they're sick. But unfortunately, that's not the case. I mean, we've had some incidents where people have threatened violence against staff members by asking them to put masks on. And that's pretty concerning. Trying to be the police in your own business when you're not trying to chase away customers when you're already at reduced occupancy has been a really, really tough task to take on.
In Billings, Casey Conlon, MTN News.
And now it's time to get a check of weather with Ed joining us on the desk after yesterday's windy day. I don't think he meant it this way, but what did Popeye used to say? Well, blow me down.
Well, it's Silly Sayings Day. I guess you got that one in.
It still
I like
works,
that.
right?
Now, blow me down.
There, you're way better at it than me.
Let's go ahead and take a look and see what's going on this morning. And let's never do that again. Yes. 40 right now, and we got a clear sky, a little bit of a west breeze into the mix. Yesterday, we managed to make it up to 69 miles an hour, but you mentioned the wind, and that really was the big story. Gust up to 62 miles an hour recorded at the Billings Airport yesterday. So this morning we're starting off with a quieter weather picture, 30s and 40s across the region. We got some showers that'll move into western Montana. We'll talk about all this in a little bit, but we get a little break, especially for the morning, and then some of the wind and the showers start to move back into the picture. For Billings, we'll see increasing clouds later in the day, but the temperature's pretty typical for this time in October in the low 60s. More details coming up in a few minutes.
All right, I'll gladly take the, about average temps over wind any day. So.
For sure.
All right, thank you so much, Ed. In campaign news, an anti-marijuana group here in Montana is demanding to know where all the money is coming from as pro-legalization efforts rake in the cash. Almost $5 million supporting recreational marijuana in the state has come from the North Fund based out of Washington, D.C. So far, the people behind that group haven't released any information about who's donating to them. They're exempt from doing that because their primary purpose is listed as something other than spending in elections. The anti-legalization group Wrong for Montana has filed a complaint hoping to force the North Fund to reveal its donors. It's now in the hands of the state's Commissioner of Political Practices. There's no word on when he'll make a decision. In Montana's high-profile U.S. Senate race, Republican Steve Daines and Democrat Steve Bullock aren't shy about pointing out their differences. But as MTN's Mike Dennison explains, both men are also touting their ability to work together with members of the opposite party.
If you listen to Governor Steve Bullock's campaign pitch, it won't be long before you hear something like this.
Montana voters have seen how I've actually brought people together to get things done, and that's Democrats and Republicans.
Bullock can make this claim because while he's been governor, Republicans have controlled the legislature, so he has to work with some of them to pass a budget or other big items. For example, he enacted and renewed Medicaid expansion, which brought health coverage to 90,000 low-income Montanans. Also, a landmark law forcing more disclosure of campaign spending in Montana, and a major infrastructure bill passed last year. Yet Senator Daines makes a very similar claim in his standard campaign rhetoric.
Well, I'm grateful that I've been recognized as one of the most bipartisan, most effective senators.
He too can back this up with many victories. Passage of a major land and water conservation bill this year, adding acreage in the Bob Marshall Wilderness, and getting benefits for Vietnam vets injured by Agent Orange while in the Navy.
If you just want to get a press release, you go off and do something by yourself. If you want to get an outcome, you've got to work. You've got to find somebody on the other side of the aisle to join you.
The two candidates must see this as a winning message because they're trying to tear down the other guy's bipartisan credentials. Bullock says another measure of bipartisanship is standing up to your own party, which he says Daines rarely does.
Bipartisanship is more than signing on to a bill with a co-sponsor that's going to go nowhere. 95% of the time, he's voted with Mitch McConnell. 100% of my accomplishments have been bipartisan.
According to the website 538, Daines has supported President Trump on 86% of key votes during Daines' career, but that's one of the lowest agreement rates among GOP senators. Daines also takes this swipe at Governor Bullock on the allocation of federal COVID-19 relief money this year.
Ask the Speaker of the House, Republican. Ask the President of the Senate, a Republican, if Steve Bullock ever once reached out to them to talk about how should we come together in a bipartisan way to spend $1.25 billion. The answer is zero, never reached out.
That's true, although as governor, Bullock has seldom worked with Republican leadership at the legislature. Instead, he works with a more moderate bloc of legislative Republicans to get things passed. So both men can make plausible claims to bipartisanship. Does that matter in these hyper-partisan times? It might, to voters in the middle, who may decide this race. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Also making headlines today, President Trump is expected to campaign in Pennsylvania today following last night's rally in Florida. The nation's top expert on infectious diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci, condemned the president's rally because attendees stood shoulder to shoulder and few wore masks. But the president pushed back on criticism of his handling of the pandemic, telling supporters his administration is delivering a safe vaccine and a rapid recovery like nobody can even believe. Joe Biden travels to Florida for his campaign today. The Democrat presidential nominee stumped in Ohio Monday, a state that was once a long shot for the former vice president, but is now a toss-up. President Trump won Ohio in 2016. Biden pushed a bipartisan message while in the battleground state, telling the crowd he'll work as hard for those who vote against him as those who voted for him. Another COVID-19 vaccine trial has been paused for an unexplained illness. Johnson & Johnson is in the late stages of testing and says one vaccine participant has become ill. AstraZeneca's vaccine trial is still on hold for the same reason. In a statement, Johnson & Johnson said illnesses or adverse events are expected in clinical trials. Temporary holds on large medical studies are relatively common, but few are made public. Supreme Court nomination hearings for Amy Coney Barrett opened on Capitol Hill yesterday, and Republicans and Democrats gave a fairly good preview of what to expect today and in the days ahead. CNN's Karen Caifa is in Washington this morning with the latest.
This is going to be a long, contentious week.
The Senate Judiciary Committee opened confirmation hearings for President Trump's Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett as Democrats balked at the speed.
Senate Republicans are pressing forward, full speed ahead, to consolidate a court that will carry their policies forward.
And the proximity of the process to Election Day.
More than 9 million Americans have already voted, and millions more will vote while this illegitimate committee process is underway.
The parties drawing their battle lines, Republicans praising the nominee's qualifications.
Her integrity and character are unimpeachable.
Democrats honing in on health care, with the High Court set to hear a challenge to the Affordable Care Act on November 10th. The GOP accusing Democrats of playing politics.
I will object anytime anyone tries to attribute to you a policy position and hold you to that. You're not a policymaker, you're a judge.
In her own statement, Judge Barrett acknowledged the weight of the moment and trailblazers like the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whose vacancy she would fill.
I will be forever grateful for the path she marked and the life she led.
In Washington, I'm Karen Caifa.
In other national news this morning, analysts are preparing to see huge losses when airlines begin reporting third quarter financial results today. They predict the industry will report about a $10 billion loss. Airlines reported combined losses of $12 billion in the second quarter. American and United cut more than 30,000 jobs combined since the end of September. They were hoping for some relief, but negotiations over a second industry stimulus have stumbled in Washington. Today is Amazon Prime Day. Analysts are expecting the event to net huge profits. The pandemic sent online shopping levels soaring. It's estimated that online sales in the U.S. will surge to $710 billion this year. Globally, that number is expected to be $4 trillion. This year, Amazon has created a new Watch This Deal button, which enables customers to set an alert to be notified when specific products go on sale. However, this button is only available on Amazon's mobile app. Now closer to home, a couple in western Montana spent over a year putting together a special gift for injured Highway Patrol Trooper Wade Palmer. Ellen and Brian Remington made this quilt by collecting patches from law enforcement agencies all over the country. They said they were blown away by the support, getting many messages of support to go along with the patches. The couple presented the final product to two troopers who plan to deliver the gift to Palmer this week. Wade is doing better and continuing to rehab at home in Stevensville.